It means a lot to do this because I'm very passionate about it. In our profession, in our world we live in, as we raise our kids, I'm passionate about change and things being different for my two little ones. I got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I don't want them to be my age at 37 and things still be the same. And they don't know anything about racism. Our kids don't. All this stuff is taught in homes. Kids don't come out and they're all of a sudden have these beliefs about white or black or any other race. So I want my kids to have better than I've had and than people on here have had and live in a better world. So all these are really important to me. My background, I grew up in a small town in Kentucky, and, racism, I learned about racism on the fly. Nobody educated me on that. I was 7 years old, got on a school bus, and a kid called me the N-word, and I didn't even know what the N-word was. And I went home and I asked my parents about it, and my father sat me down and explained exactly what that meant, and then it was a derogatory term, and you're not supposed to say that. And that obviously wasn't the last time I've been called that. But at 7 years old, you just learn on the fly. And I come from a great hometown in London, Kentucky. I love my hometown, but there's a lot of things that need to change currently, and especially back in the 80s. They definitely need to change. As you get older, you get the status a little bit. You become a head coach. You become a successful lawyer. You become a businessman, whatever it is. And I think some people think you're immune to racism because you happen to have success in the area that you work in. That's not the case. A lot of times it's more subtle. A lot of times racism is more subtle when you get to a level of success. One thing I hear a whole lot is, they talk about our program and we've had success at Nicholls State and at South Alabama, and we're still trying to build that. But the first thing that people talk about is how we recruit. And the next thing people say a lot is, well, a lot of those guys are just out there running wild and this and that. And if you watch us play, it's nothing like that. And if you see the culture of our program, it's nothing like that. There's only one reason that that's stated, and it's because of the color of my skin. I don't think there's any question. If I didn't look like what I did, then our team would be, or our program would be talked about in a different light. Those wouldn't be the top two things that people happen to say. The other thing that I'm really passionate about, like our guys are going to vote. They're going to be educated. We're going to have speakers come in. We're doing a lot of things that a lot of coaches have already said. But the thing I'm passionate about this whole deal is across college basketball, we've got to stop using guys up. A lot of programs in the country use guys for their ability to get wins, to get extensions, to get better jobs. And they don't help these guys become better men. A lot of guys we get, a lot of them grow up without a father, and they grow up in tough situations. And they need that figure in their life to help them become a better man, to help them see what success looks like, to see what being a great father looks like, to see what being a great husband looks like, to see what great leadership looks like. And we got to quit, as a whole in college basketball, we've got to quit, looking at guys like they're hopeless because they have some issues. We recruit these guys. So when we get them here, we've got to do a good job of helping them be ready to be successful when they leave our place. I think that's really important. And that's something we take very seriously in our program. We want guys leaving. That's a promise I make to every parent, every AAU coach, whoever it is, we're recruiting their dudes. They're going to leave here a better man, and they're going to have the tools to be successful. And then last, before I pass it on to somebody else, because I don't want to talk too long right now because I'll have other opportunities, is in our profession, we've got to do a better job. There's not enough diversity within our profession when it gets to the highest level. Obviously, it starts with athletic directors, but also coaches. I did a study a while back. It's kind of spread out now. A lot of people have heard this, but when we first started quarantine, I started to look into this, and there's out of the non-HBCU schools in Division I basketball, because HBCU is predominantly black head coaches. Out of the non-HBCU programs, 334. 79 black head coaches. That's 23%. It's a low number considering the amount of African-American players across the country. Then you look at the Power Five. There's 65 Power Five schools. That's not counting other high majors, in the Big East and some of those places. The Power Five, there's 65. There's 8 head coaches, which is an unbelievable stat when you sit back and think about it. So I take it very seriously, and I take a lot of weight on my shoulders to carry the torch. I'm one of 79. And I've got to do a good job so the next guy gets an opportunity. There's a lot of guys on this call right now. I scrolled through to see who was on here that are more than qualified, more than ready to be a head coach. They just need an opportunity. So I've got to do my job of carrying that torch so the next guy gets an opportunity. And the more guys we can get, the more diversity can be great for college basketball, can be great for mentoring guys. And just as a whole, we've got to do better with diversity within what we're doing. And I'm a big proponent of that, and I'm fighting for it every single day. I want you guys to know that. And I'm excited to be on here. Again, thank you guys a lot for allowing me to be here.
I appreciate you having me on, Coach. This is special for me to get to speak to y'all today. This is such a unique thing in my life, because a lot of you that know me know that I've not always been in basketball, and basketball has given me so many things. And when I sit back and look at it and try and wrap my head around some perspective on how I've been able to get involved so much in something that I love, a lot of it involves basketball players, and a lot of it involves basketball coaches. And when I look at the landscape of the players and the coaches, and I see so many faces looking back at me that don't look like me, and I realize I have to, I owe so many things back to this community, and then look at the bigger picture and how much I owe back to the Black community in general, for where we've been able to go. And so, my life has not really revolved around a lot of diversity up until this point. I lived overseas. I lived on a lot of Air Force bases. I lived in a lot of places where a lot of the people I spent time around looked like me. So education and understanding of really what a Black man, Black woman goes through day to day was not something that I grew up around. Having a true understanding, a real feeling of that. I remember when I was first getting into this and spending some time around some players, and a young man named Dwight Smith told me about getting pulled over one time when he was on his way home to Omaha, and him and his brother were taken out of the car, and they were, told to lay down on the ground and stuff. And the crime they had committed was they were driving a little too fast. And that kind of was something that stuck with me, because I thought about how my life experience has no context for that. My life experience, every time, I've worried about being pulled over, I'm worried about getting a ticket. And that's literally the worst thing that I'm worried about. So that as I've gotten more into, this world, my understanding of, what Black people go through has grown. And so Maya Angelou said something that I think is extraordinarily relevant to a white person in this world today. And there's two parts to it. One is that you do the best you can until you know better. And I've always lived my life trying to treat people as well as I can, regardless of their background, regardless of their skin color, regardless of their life experiences. But the second part of that is, once you know better, do better. And I now know better. And I honestly started to know better a while ago, right? We start to kind of see like, hey, this isn't right. I deal with coaches all day, every day. And I start seeing like, well, like Coach said there, the number of Black coaches versus the number of white coaches. And I saw that, but it didn't resonate with me that, one, that there was something that should be done now, right? But two, that I had a voice to help make a change there. And so, now that we know better, now that I know better, I have to do better. And I can't be afraid of upsetting somebody by trying to do better. I can't be afraid of having conversations. We call them uncomfortable conversations. They can't be uncomfortable. Like it has to become a conversation that we're comfortable having. I'm comfortable having a conversation now where I use this platform that we've been blessed to build, and that fortunately has a voice in this space and beyond, where I can have that conversation and say, hey, when I'm talking to coaches about who they should hire, right? I can justifiably and with fervor say, you need to hire this Black coach. And when there's pushback, push back to that. It's not saying please anymore. I think a lot of Black coaches have said please for a long time, and this is why we are where we are. It's not saying please anymore, and I got to help not say please. I got to help say this. All right, this is what we're gonna do. This is the change that needs to happen. So we're going to help make it happen. So I can't be afraid of upsetting somebody. So one of the things that we've put together, we're calling Project Rise. And immediately the first thing that clicked in my head was this white savior complex thing, where it's like, okay, well, the white guy is here to, try and fix things. And what does that look like? And realistically, as a white person, racism, especially in this industry, is something that is created by guys that look like me. Is created by white people. This is something that has been going on since we've had college basketball. And this is the space that I can have an impact. So I don't look at it like a white savior complex thing. I look at it as using my platform and using my voice as having some strength there to help people that I consider friends, that I consider brothers, that I consider family members. And if I don't do that, what was the point of everything that I'm doing? Why did I build this platform? So through Project Rise, we're going to use it to help inject new Black coaches into Division I basketball. And it's not that Division I basketball is the end all be all of everything, but we all know that when change starts at the top, we start seeing that change filter down through the rest. And so we want to start at the top, and we want to get new coaches into Division I basketball. We want to help coaches educate their young players who they're identifying as future coaches. What are the things that they can be doing now while they're playing to prepare to be coaches? There's a drastic issue in GAs in regards to Black GAs versus white GAs. It follows right along the lines as Coach Riley was talking about with head coaches in Division I. And so, Black players that you say, hey man, I think this is going to be a future coach. How do we help that guy get on that path and stay on that path if that's something that they're interested in, so that, we can really affect change from a grassroots perspective. And so for us, we're going to use this voice, and we're going to use this platform as much as we can, as loud as we can, and not apologize to anybody for it, and see what kind of change we can make.
I'm gonna ask you a question, man. And first of all, Goble is doing a tremendous job with the platform that he has, and he's built a heck of a brand. So the question I have for you, I think I know the answer already, but with the brand that you've created and how many meaningful contacts that you have, do you feel comfortable talking to other coaches and athletic directors about the lack of diversity within college coaching, especially when we talk about head coaches? Do you feel comfortable having those conversations with people without compromising your friendship or who they may think you are?
Yeah, I think, at first, as we were building this thing, you have this idea in your head of, here's where I'm trying to get to, and how do I best do that? And, without being intentional on it, sometimes I think you compromise your values if it leads to, so getting further along that path. Right. And at some point you discover that your values and what's right, are actually the most important thing in progressing along that path. And so, I've always tried to look at it. People get afraid of having those conversations, right? Especially if it's somebody that's an AD, that's another head coach, somebody that could have some influence on them, right? And so the first thing I think I had to get comfortable with was releasing that fear and buying into the concept of speaking truth to power, where you say, okay, if somebody is an athletic director, if somebody is a head coach, this is somebody that could influence something in my life, and being confident in the fact that that truth that you are speaking to power is the right thing, then you just kind of let it go where it may. One of the things that has bothered me throughout this phone call is the lack of white coaches that are here today. I scrolled through it consistently throughout this, and there's a lot of people that I wish were here that are not. As I look across the landscape of college basketball, there's some head coaches, especially at the Division I level, that I have plans on having some phone calls and some conversations with about the lack of diversity in their staff and the lack of diversity in their history as a coach, and not in a way that's accusatory. That doesn't help, right? But it's picking up the phone and saying, Coach, I think you could do a better job, and I want to help you. I want to help you do a better job. I want to help you be a better coach. Like, let me use what I'm good at and what I have available, and give that to you, so that you can diversify your life, you can diversify your staff, you can get to experience some of the wonderful people that I know, and not be afraid to have that conversation, and not be afraid of them saying, go to hell. All right. But if I don't step up and take this platform that I have now and speak truth to power, then I'm wasting it. And what I'm trying to do, is not worth the words that are coming out of my mouth. So yeah, I mean that comfort comes through some introspection and some thought and things like that with having those conversations. But as soon as you release that fear and just be confident in what your message is and speak that truth to power, then it comes pretty easily, and then you can then hopefully get some things accomplished.
No question. Great answer.
Question for you, Coach. We talked earlier, or I mentioned earlier, about GAs, and the lack of diversity in GAs. And I think coaches, there are things that coaches could do to not only identify, great future coaches when they're players, but then help in that process. What are things that you as a coach, when you see a young man, whether it's on your team, whether it's on another team, or just somebody else in the industry, what are things that you can do to, and for all head coaches, what are things all head coaches can do to help lift those young men early, those young Black players that are future head coaches, and get them, moving on to then being future coaches?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is I have a lot of guys that have went into the coaching profession that have played for me and are doing a really good job of what they're doing and have a bright future. The first thing we need to do as coaches, to me, is show guys what true leadership is, so that when they do get an opportunity, that they understand what that is. True leadership is not being best friends and making everybody happy all the time. True leadership has to do with accountability, and it has to do with coaching guys. I tell every family that we recruit and every kid, you come here, you're going to get coached, and you're going to leave here a better man than when I got you. And we're going to win some games, and I'm going to help you get to your dreams and goals. But that's the most important thing that I can do for you, is hold you accountable and make sure you understand what being a man and going and being successful, whatever you do, looks like. And that's something we have to do as coaches, so that they see what being a leader is like. It's about caring and loving for them, but also holding them accountable and pushing them towards greatness. The other thing is they need to – I always talk to guys about this. And I've seen some things that go against this a little bit in some of these Zooms that I've been on, but I want guys to understand the game and understand how to play it, because so much goes into perspective And it's all about the picture that you paint of yourself. What do other people, especially opposite of your race, see when they see you, how you present yourself, how you coach the game, how you move? And it matters. And I can't stress that enough. In this business, it matters. Fair or unfair, it matters. It matters how you carry yourself. It matters how you present yourself. And I talk to our guys about that all the time. It's about the audience that's seeing you. The audience, when you're with your teammates in the locker room or your friends back home, is much different than the audience that's going to help you make moves in this profession and be successful with coaching. So you have to be cognizant of that all the time, and you have to learn to play that game. The other thing, somebody touched on this earlier, is don't ever allow yourself to be labeled as a recruiter. I fought tooth and nail to not ever be labeled as a recruiter, and it was hard. Now, let me preface this. I became assistant at Coastal Carolina, at Eastern Kentucky, at UAB, and at Clemson because my ability to go get guys that were really good players. That's how I got there. But I didn't ever sacrifice or ever allow anybody to put me into that label. I demanded as much as I could because I wasn't the boss then, but I begged and borrowed whatever to let me have scouts. Let me have workout groups. Let me continue to grow as a coach because I had dreams of being a head coach. And I knew I had to always get players above my level, and I did that. But I also wanted to grow as a coach so that I would be ready for the opportunity if I could ever get one. And that's important for guys. I think too much and too many guys out there, we talk about a lot, especially black assistant. I can do this, I can do that. It's great. But that's also how people are going to excuse not hiring you to be a head coach is, okay, you can recruit. You're an elite recruiter. That's what you do. No, it's not what I do. I can do that. That's part of the whole package. But I'm equally as good a coach, motivator, leader as I am recruiter. And I think that's important. And then lastly, I think as head coaches, whether you're black, white, whatever, you have to have the same energy helping your guys get to their dreams and goals as you did when you were trying to recruit them to help you get to yours. And that's really important to me. And I tell our guys that all the time. You're not going to play. That's one of my best selling points. I tell them you're not going to play for anybody that's going to give you more energy and effort for your future. And I believe in that. And I'm passionate about that. And it's a lifelong bond. I got guys right now that are trying to climb in the coaching ranks. I've obviously got guys that are playing professionally, and guys are just working 9 to 5s. And it's an open door for me to help them nonstop. Obviously, in coaching, I can help those guys. And those guys are in my tree. They're in my family till the end of time, till I don't do this anymore. So I encourage everybody to have that same energy as you did when you were tracking those guys down, texting them, calling them, recruiting them because they were going to change your program. Have that same energy when it comes to changing their life. And I think if we do that, we can really get some guys in some good spots and change the narrative of what we're going through.